89 against the Dallas Wings. Congratulations to the Fever. They killed it with their old and trusty playbook of just rim run.
When the final buzzer echoed across the arena and the scoreboard read 99-82 in favor of the Indiana Fever, it wasn't just another win, it was a revelation. A statement. A moment when every excuse, every narrative, every tired talking point about Caitlin Clark not being ready for the professional game was burned to ash. It was the kind of fourth quarter that exposed not just a team, but a league full of skeptics and critics who continue to underestimate the magnitude of what Clark brings to the floor. And the Atlanta Dream? They found out the hard way. They were hanging around, sure. For 2 quarters, the Dream made a fight of it, keeping pace, answering shots, doing everything in their power to slow down the Fever. But by the second half, by that fateful fourth quarter, they looked gassed. Out of ideas. Out of rhythm. And most importantly, out of answers for Caitlin Clark. It wasn't even a scoring explosion that buried them. Clark finished with 12 points. But this wasn't about stats. It was about control, presence, tempo, command.
Caitlin Clark said, folks, forget what she's talking about. Today, I'm gonna run the show.
She was everywhere and nowhere, not always the one finishing the play, but always the one who started it, bent the defense, and forced the Dream to collapse under the weight of her basketball IQ. And what's wild is that the Dream thought they were ready. They came in with a game plan. Film sessions, whiteboard diagrams, hours spent discussing rotations and switches, maybe even the occasional double team. They prepped for Clark like she was a problem to solve. But what they encountered was a player they simply couldn't contain, because what Clark does goes far beyond anything you can draw up in a locker room. She doesn't just run an offense, she becomes the offense. She dictates how the game is played. And when Stephanie White finally, mercifully, gave her the reins, you saw what happened. The Fever ran the Dream out of their own building. It's
Josh Hart should have flamed her. He should have sent her into the abyss. 11-0. Let's be honest.
a moment that deserves to be studied, not just for what it says about Clark's growth, but for what it says about a league still struggling to grasp her impact. For weeks, fans have begged to see the Iowa version of Caitlin Clark, the logo shooter, the tempo setter, the unstoppable force who can change a game without scoring a single point. And against Atlanta, we finally saw her, and it all began with one key shift. Stephanie White let go of the leash. For too long, White had tried to fit Clark into a traditional mold, relegating her to the corners, giving ball-handling duties to players who simply didn't have her vision or creativity. The result was predictable: stale offensive possessions, missed opportunities, a team that looked out of sync. But in the second half, White finally allowed Clark to play the game her way. Fast, free, fierce. And suddenly, everything clicked. The offense flowed. Aaliyah Boston and Clark reignited their Stockton-Malone chemistry. Dantas got involved. Kelsey Mitchell found her rhythm. Sophie Cunningham became a shooting threat again. And Caitlin? She played the role of maestro, orchestrating a symphony of movement, timing.
So we need to be completely honest about A'ja Wilson here, because these are some of the dumbest conversations ever in sport.
And execution that left Atlanta spinning in circles. Even without her shot falling, Clark torched Jordan Canada, a defensive specialist by trade, off the dribble, forcing rotations, collapsing the paint, and spraying passes to open shooters like she had the court wired into her mind. It wasn't just that she was good. It was that she made everyone around her better. The very definition of elite. And let's talk about that ninth best point guard narrative. The sheer absurdity of it is enough to make your head spin. Coaches vote her ninth, then dedicate their entire defensive scheme to stopping her. They act like she's an ordinary rookie, then guard her like she's prime Diana Taurasi with a jetpack. You can't have it both ways. Either she's a generational threat worthy of nightly scheming, or she's not. But every time she steps on the court and bends defenses to her will, the truth becomes harder to ignore. Caitlin Clark is already the best point guard in the WNBA, and the league just hasn't caught up yet. Even the Dream's own coaching staff admitted as much, though not with words, but with their silence. Post-game interviews were filled with vague comments about defensive breakdowns and extra possessions.
The Indiana Fever beat the Dallas Wings 102-83. This was a highly anticipated game because it was going to be the first time that
outmaneuvered, outclassed. But this game wasn't just a win. It was a warning. To every coach, every team, every analyst still clinging to the idea that Clark is a project, a prospect, a maybe someday star. Wake up. That day is already here, and for the Fever, the blueprint has been written in bold, flashing letters. Want to win? Let Clark cook. Want to unlock your roster's full potential? Put the ball in her hands and get out of the way. It's not that complicated. And yet, it's taken far too long to get here. We saw glimpses of what this team could be during that second half. We saw what happens when ego is left at the door, when roles are clear, and when the game is allowed to flow through the player who understands it better than anyone else on the court. Clark didn't need to score 30 to dominate. Her presence alone shifted the balance of the game. That's the kind of player you build around, not micromanage, and yet, there's still this lingering question: will the Fever lean into this identity? Or will they revert back to whatever strange system they were forcing before? Because until they consistently commit to letting Clark lead, the wins will be sporadic, and the chemistry will remain fragile. The version of the Fever we saw in that fourth quarter could contend with anyone. The version without Clark running the show? Mediocre, at best. This is the dilemma that Stephanie White must face now.
Clark reminded everybody who she is in the Fever win over the Wings in what was a blowout victory, one where Clark didn't even shoot the ball well.
She saw what works. She saw the dominance. Now, will she double down on it or treat it like a one-off? Because make no mistake, this isn't about one game. It's about direction. It's about identity. And right now, Indiana has a chance to define itself through a generational talent. Squander that, and they'll be remembered as the team that fumbled the future. And let's not ignore how Clark got here. Through injuries. Through criticism. Through rotations that made no sense. Through teammates that sometimes froze her out. Through coaching decisions that baffled even the most casual fans. She kept grinding. Kept adjusting. Kept finding new ways to contribute. That kind of resilience doesn't show up in stat sheets, but it shows up in moments like these, when a team needs a leader, and she rises to the occasion without hesitation. She's taken hits. Literally. Fouled hard. Cheap shot. Guarded. Physically every night. Yet she keeps pushing. Keeps smiling. Keeps fighting through it. And now, as she starts to regain her rhythm, as her body recovers and her confidence swells, the league should be terrified. Because if this is Clark operating at 70%, imagine what she'll do when she's at full strength, the Atlanta Dream found out. And they won't be the last. This is how revolutions start, not with loud declarations, but with quiet domination. With fourth quarters that turn games into blowouts. With assists that thread through defenders like magic. With a team suddenly clicking into place because the right person finally has the wheel. Caitlin Clark didn't need to drop 40 to prove her point. She didn't need to yell or scream or pound her chest. She just played basketball the way it's supposed to be played.
I do think that she's a bit delusional here, and also maybe the slightest bit disrespectful, because I don't know.
And in doing so, reminded everyone watching that greatness doesn't always look flashy on the scoreboard. Sometimes it looks like control, like calm, like leadership in motion, and when you see it, really see it, there's no denying what she is: not ninth, not developing, not overrated. She's the best. And the rest of the league better start adjusting. Now it's your turn. Do you think this was Caitlin Clark's breakout moment in the pros? Should the Fever finally let her run the team full-time? And how long will it take for the rest of the WNBA to give her the respect she's already earned? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more deep dives like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a moment. The revolution has started, and Caitlin Clark is leading the charge.